Welcome to Sports Makes Sense, where the game meets the grind. I'm Joel Gamble, former NFL player for the Philadelphia Eagles, Cleveland Browns, and the Tennessee Titans. On this podcast, we break down the biggest sports stories and financial plays behind them, bringing you real conversations with athletes, coaches, and industry insiders. Whether it's contracts, investments, or life after the game, we connect the X's and the O's to the dollars and cents. Well, let's go. What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Joel Gamble. We are here with Sports Make Sense. We got another special guest in the building. Our guest today, a Baltimore native. She is a dynamic 5'11" guard forward. That's right. She can handle the rock as well as shoot the rock and post up. Currently playing for the University of Maryland Terps women's basketball team. She was a McDonald's All-American in 2020, earning recognition as one of the top high school players in the country. She began a collegiate career at the University of Connecticut, UConn, during the 2020-2021 season, where she appeared in 24 games. And in January 2022, she transferred to the University of Virginia, where she played through the 2022-2023 season, showcasing her athleticism and versatility on both ends of the court. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. She played defense too. She gonna lock you down. In May 2024, she transferred home to the University of Maryland, bringing her talents closer to home. Her addition to the Terps roster has been highly anticipated, with expectations that her experience and skills will make an immediate impact. And that she has done. She has helped this current team at College Park women's basketball to a record of 23-7. Fourth in the Big Ten currently right now. Throughout her collegiate career and journey, she has been recognized for athleticism, defensive prowess, and rebounding ability. As she continues her career with Maryland, fans and teammates alike look forward to her contributions on the court. Let's give it up for Mir McLean in the building. What's going on?
Hey.
How you been? How's everything going for you?
Good. How are you?
I'm blessed. I can't complain. I'm getting old, trying to keep my body active and all of that. Trying to keep my bones from being brittle, but it's all good. I'm very blessed and very busy. I would say that. I've, seen your journey for some time now, and you've been through quite a lot, from being a top high school prospect to, McDonald's All-American. During that time, COVID hit. And so if I'm not mistaken, you guys weren't able to have a McDonald's All-American game. And so just talk a little bit about your journey from high school until you've kind of matriculated through the various schools that you've attended until now at the Maryland Terps.
Yeah, so throughout high school, I just grew a love for the game. I got more and more competitive the better that I got. On my AAU team takeover, was super successful. We won the AAU championship my last year. So that was like one of my high school highs going out into college. And then I decided to go to UConn just for like IQ purposes. All of high school, I depended on my athleticism, and I didn't really learn the game like I wanted to. So I went to UConn to kind of learn under one of the greats of coaches of college basketball.
You gotta tell the folks what coach that is. Everybody. I mean, I know women's basketball is huge now, but tell everybody who you played for.
Yeah, Gina Ariema and Coach Daly. I still talk to them to this day. So That was something that I really enjoyed, like learning underneath them. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to transfer just because I wanted to be more exposed to the game of like actually playing through everything. So my sophomore season, I transferred to UVA to get like more of a academic side of things, because basketball was only basketball at UConn. So I was like, you know what, let me tap into the academics for a little bit. because
Yeah.
the ball does stop bouncing.
Yeah.
And I got the best of both worlds from there. I got coached by Tina Thompson, and then
Wow.
Coach Knox, who's there now. And then the year, I want to say it was last year, I got injured back to back. So in October,
Mhm.
I tore my UCL and my thumb. And then in January of that next year, I tore my ACL. Well, I
Mhm.
dislocated it and tore my ACL, and that put me out for the rest of that season, which was like a month or two left. And then the following season after that. And then after that, I transferred again just because I wanted to be closer to home and kind of have a fresh start because my injury was a little severe. I
Yeah.
just wanted a fresh start closer to home, and that brought me to Maryland.
Nice, nice, nice. And so you mentioned that you played under Tina Thompson. For those of you who don't know, Tina Thompson used to play for the Houston Comets, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? From the WNBA? Is that correct, Mir?
See, I think so. She would be mad that I didn't know.
Yo, that's crazy. Yeah, Tina. So around 1997, when the WNBA, I think it was 97, 96, 97, when it first kind of kicked off, and that's when I was, kind of coming along, and I think I was in high school, and so I was able to actually watch the WNBA as it grew. During that time, I thought it was amazing because you got Lisa Leslie, she dunked in the basketball. You got Tina Thompson, she played on the championship team because she played with Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Swoops, and you had all of these amazing women out there just killing it, and I just feel like the marketing of the league I think they dropped the ball on that back then because it was a huge push. It was a huge it was just a lot surrounding the league, especially with Lisa Leslie, and everybody was watching and waiting for her to dunk the basketball in the actual game. And so over the years, the WNBA has kind of gone through its ebbs and flows where it's been popular a little bit and then, it's kind of gone downhill. And there's been complaints about, just the pay for women and equal pay and revenue sharing and all of those types of things. And then we've seen as of late, the WNBA has really kind of risen now, and it's kind of like an evolution. And so, what are your thoughts? And, I know you talked to a lot of your teammates, and I know Angel Reese, she came from University of Maryland originally and transferred to LSU. What are your thoughts as to the evolution of women's basketball and the WNBA?
I think it's been super important just for everyone who's come through the program in general and every woman that's played the sport. I think they've all played a part in what it is today. I think especially today, people are starting to get or understand that it should be respected and it should be equalized compared to like the men's side of things. And it's still a work in progress, but I feel like it's a lot better than what it used to be. And I feel like just larger figures like you see Steph Curry, Kobe was
Mhm.
working on it, like just kind of emphasizing like the importance of women's basketball and then incentivizing it just for everyone to watch who watches them to watch us too.
What do you think is it going to take for a women's basketball, I guess, to be as popular as men's basketball in the WNBA and the NBA? What do you think there's going to take as far as a comparison? Is it going to take a superstar? Is it going to take someone just out there that everybody like? We saw Caitlin Clark come along. We saw the rivalry between her and Angel Reese. That kind of build up and picked up some momentum. I'm sure you played with Paige Beckers, and now JuJu is coming along as well. You guys played against her this year. So what do you think is going to take as far as a superstar? Because we've seen Candace Parker, we've seen Maya, we've seen Diana Taurasi, we've seen some greats come through, and it just hasn't elevated to the point where I would say a lot of the fans, like where's the fan base coming from, and how can women and how can everybody kind of build that fan base?
Honestly, I feel like it kind of dipped a little bit once COVID hit, but after COVID stopped and everyone wanted to get out of the house, honestly, I feel like it was something that kind of set us off for the better. I think it really needs just time. Like I feel like people are starting to look at the men's game and like, okay, like dunk the ball, but like now men aren't really dunking the ball. Like they're going to fast break and just lay it up, and people are like, come on, like that's not what we came to see. But I feel like, basketball is forever evolving, and I feel like just with time it'll progress in the way that we want it to.
So, tell me about some of the stars that you kind of look up to, whether it's in the NBA or the WNBA, and just talk about just the evolution of basketball in general. I know for me, I've grown up, I've seen Jordan, I've seen Kobe, I've seen LeBron. Those are like my top three players of all time right there. And I've seen just the different evolutions and eras in the NBA as it relates, and the WNBA as it relates to just the skill set, the players, and the mentality, I would say too. So who are some of those players that you look up to, and what is some of the reasons why?
The person that I've always looked up to and like I've watched too much film on just more than anybody else is Michael Jordan. I feel like I watched him a lot because he was super, super athletic, and just his story in general was really inspiring. Like, he didn't make his team in, I think, high school, so I thought that was like pretty cool. And just like watching him and like his mid-range game was crazy, and like just the way he was off the court also I really like just his attitude and his presence. Like, people talk about Mamba mentality, but I feel like Jordan's mentality to me kind of like, it was kind of like edgy, and like there was a lot of grit behind what he did and a lot of pride, and I really really like that. And I feel like I could tap into like his competitive side. And then when he got compared to Kobe, or Kobe got compared to him, it was kind of like, okay, like I could watch Kobe a little bit, but no one will be better than Jordan in my opinion. So that's who I watched a lot.
Not gonna take no Kobe slander on this show now. We ain't taking no Kobe slander. But yeah, so are you, is that the type of player that you are? Are you just like a tenacious, physical player on the court? Like, describe you as a player and some of the attributes that you have, and then what are some of the things that you feel like you need to work on?
Yeah, I feel like just because I'm in between the guard and the post, like I've grown up being a post my whole life, so like I've been working on being more of a guard just because of my size. And like the mid-range game was always something that I enjoyed, but I'm starting to do it a little more as people are like, playing my drives more often. I think that I am very aggressive, especially like offensive rebounding. Defensive rebounding too, rebounding in general, but I think offensive rebounding kind of kills the defense, and they're like, they got to play another 20 seconds of basketball. So I feel like it's just something that kind of deflates the other team, and that kind of drives my competitive spirit. So I feel like, especially rebounding wise, offensively, is something that I'm super, super good at and take pride in.
Nice, nice. And we see, Angel players like Angel Reese, who, is local as well. And she, if I'm not mistaken, she led the WNBA in rebounds this year. And then they just started a new league. So the new league is unrivaled. And I think this was started by the players. And you mentioned Steph Curry. He's one of the players that actually invested into that league. And so talk about that. What are the college women think, what are the thoughts now when it comes to, next steps for professional sports? Like, if you plan on taking the next step into the WNBA or another league or overseas, what are some of those conversations in the locker room as it pertains to women's basketball?
Like, just with the evolution of everything?
Yeah.
I think, it's like important, like I said, that it is evolving and people are starting to watch more and more of it. I think that is a big part of it. But I do see like more of the excitement in the locker room. Like, I can't imagine what it was like after college back in the day before the WNBA was even a thing. Like, people would just go and do like normal jobs that they got their degree in, for example. Or like, even I look at some other sports like volleyball just getting their new league outside of college. So like, I'm super excited for them because they can still express their passion in sports in a different way. And I feel like, just in terms of like the locker room and stuff, like you can really look at your teammates and think like, I'm going to be watching you someday, or like you guys can come to my games. Or even with NIL, it's like people are getting deals and sharing it with their teammates. Like, people are just being very generous. And I feel like it's something that it's more of like a share the wealth type of industry, in terms of like, it's entertainment. So people are watching you, and then also just you being excited for the people around you, as well as getting better yourself.
Sure. And so I know you mentioned the NIL. And so for those that are watching and tuning in, NIL is essentially name, image, and likeness. This is marketing. Mir, I was just on with former NFL player Brandon Copeland, we were talking about NIL. He's created an organization that helps college students and student athletes kind of navigate the world of NIL. And we were just having a conversation about NIL, and we were talking, and he was like, yo, like name, image, and likeness is us. Like it's you. It's Mir McLean. It's your family. It's the name on your back of your jersey. There's no reason why the NCAA should ever have withheld that opportunity from college athletes. Like that's an opportunity, like specifically, my name's Joel Gamble. Somebody wants to sign, one of my jerseys and pay me to sign a jersey, or they want me to sign the jersey and I get paid for it. That's my name. That's my image. That's my likeness. And fans are coming to see me play. And there's a difference between the NIL, which is marketing and branding and all of those types of things, and revenue sharing in NCAA, where the schools now have to pay for they're paying out money with the TV deals and different things like that. So with some of the different changes that are put in place, what are some of the talks on campus as it relates to revenue sharing at various top universities? I mean, you've gone to 3 major universities where I'm sure there's definitely revenue sharing taking place now, with whether it's the football teams, now basketball teams, men's and women.
Yeah, so in 2020, there was no talk, or there was like fresh talk on NIL and everything like that. And just from being in college for so long, I've kind of like just listened to the whole NIL world kind of growing. So it is interesting to like see it firsthand and get to experience it, because in 2020, 2021, it was like we had a whole bunch of meetings. Don't take this from anybody. Don't take money. Don't do anything with money. Like if someone offers you a free whatever, don't take it. Don't let them pay for your groceries, nothing. And now
Yeah.
everything can almost always be chalked up to NIL and like who you are as a person. So I think that's a really cool evolution, because I mean, sometimes we get a little slander for it, but like there is a privilege of like being an athlete on campus just compared to everybody else. So I feel like with that recognition, it's been really fun to kind of be on the opposite side of the slander. Like athletes are lazy, or they get everything, or things like that. Just getting the recognition that I feel like a lot of us deserve, because like being a student athlete, like both a student and play a sport in college, is super, super hard and
Mhm.
time consuming. So I feel like it is really nice that like a bunch of us get the opportunity to even get paid for it, or even just be recognized as someone that is doing very well in their field of sport.
Yeah, and you should get paid, because if the schools are getting some of this money, there's no reason the coaches are getting millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then there's no reason why you as players and as athletes that the fans are coming to actually see shouldn't be getting, at least some type of benefit from it, right? And so that's great to see kind of the evolution of athletes on campus and how that's been changing. Let's talk about the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese rivalry that, kind of started in college and matriculated into the WNBA. And now we see that, I mean, shucks, the ratings for both of those teams that both of those women play on were, extremely high. And talk a little bit about what you see as a possible rivalry now in the NCAA. Whether, could it be Paige Beckers and JuJu Watkins, or, who are some of those women in the NCAA now? And how has Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark kind of impacted women's basketball?
So Angel was on my team for Takeover when we won that championship,
Yeah.
and we were supposed to play Caitlin's team, but she was, I think, doing USA, so she wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to meet then, and I feel like when Angel got to LSU and Caitlin was still at Iowa, it blew up because there was a lot of trash talking, and I feel like people hadn't really seen much of that from like the girl side of things, where it was more like gritty and basketball or girly basketball, whatever that looks like. I feel like it was something that more people could relate to and kind of get into, because people love drama. Like there's drama
Mhm.
TV shows and everything. So I feel like just combining like the drama and the storyline with sports, I feel like it was the perfect match for people, and it allowed people to kind of watch and things like that. And then of course, like it was during the NCAA when the whole world is watching basically and betting on things and things like that. I feel like that was really the start of it just because people had never seen women's basketball in that realm or in that light of like trash talking. And even now people are talking about letting the girls talk more because the men just talk trash and they get away with it, but
Why
girls, they
not?
get teed up so quick. So I think that's still being talked about a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think even now in terms of like rivalries, I think when you have your in-state rivalries like UCLA, USC, that's obviously going to be something that's going to go on for a long time, especially because both teams are so good in the Big Ten. I think whenever you have a good matchup like UConn and Texas, for example, like they have both powerhouse, or UConn and South Carolina, even where there's, there's no one side's doing better than the other. They're always being compared because they're both really good and they match up very well. So I think like any school that can match up with another school and it's more of like an equal or less dominant on one side. For example, like UConn doesn't win every time they're up against South Carolina. South Carolina doesn't win every time they're up against UConn. So I think when there's actual back and forth, and even for a little bit, it was Iowa and Maryland. Like my coach, Brenda Freed, she's from Iowa. And it's always a competitive game for her because it's like you want to beat the the team where you came from. So it's like I feel like even then it becomes a competitive game because it was always Maryland and Iowa in the Big Ten championship for the past 4 years when Caitlin was there. And I feel like people would say that was a rivalry, or even Duke and Maryland when it was the ACC. So just like whenever there's two competitive teams that match up well, I think it'll always be a rivalry, especially when they play against each other multiple times. And I feel like the media does a good job of like comparing the two and bringing the drama that everyone likes to see. So I feel like that'll keep bringing in fans as time progresses.
So you mentioned the trash talk, and so you have firsthand knowledge of what goes on the women's basketball court. So what would you? Is it intense? I mean, what type of trash talk is going on out there? What they out there saying? Like, what do you say as a women's basketball player? Like, yo, you garbage, you trash. What are you hearing out there from some of these women that you're playing against? I mean, yeah, I know y'all elbowing each other, y'all throwing the bowls and all of that. So, what's going on out there? What you hearing?
I feel like it's a lot of different things. Like this year for us, we wanted Ohio State so bad. Like we wanted Ohio State because we went to their gym and they beat us. And then we had like a whole month and a half to prepare for them the next time. And that was the only team that we played twice, just with everyone coming into the Big Ten and there being more teams. So that was something that we were highly anticipating and super excited for. And a lot of the media coverage kind of like made it so that it looked like they were going to like beat us again. And even with Ohio State, like they posted stuff on social media and things like that. Like, and a lot of programs do that. Like they'll post something like a secret hidden message within like their next game coming up or like something like that. And it just stirs the pot a little bit. And it's like, okay, like y'all got something coming. So then by the time the game comes, it's like we've been waiting for it. So we're super excited, super excited. And it just becomes like in the flow of the game, like and ones are more important. High fives are harder because we're super pumped, like helping people off the floor, being in different rotations on defense. Like it looks differently when you're playing someone that like you've been waiting to play again with like the rivalries. And it was also like a get back game, for example. So it's like just the trash talking goes from like you suck or like you can't guard me or you didn't score all game or scoreboard or just the celebrations on the bench or just in general, like a lot of exactly like for us when we played Ohio State the first time, we like they kept sticking their tongues out at us. And so then the game that we had posted all these pictures on our locker room of all the tongues sticking out and all the W's being thrown up and all that stuff. So when we were playing, we were sticking our tongues out, throwing up the W's, like just giving it back to them. So I feel like it's just like the anticipation of like wanting to play someone and then also just in the flow of the game in the moment, whatever's happening, you kind of capitalize on.
And I think that resonates with fans. Like I don't want the referees to tee anybody up and throw somebody out when they're intense on the court. They're, talking trash. I mean, just in the course of the game and, and you guys are fired up and doing your thing out there on the court. Like that's what I want to see. I need to be courtside and see somebody get crossed up and, and hear the trash talk that's going on because I know it happens and I love it. As an athlete myself, I love that competitive fire that, a lot of athletes have. And I always show respect to all athletes because I know what it takes. You mentioned just, a part about being a student athlete and how much it takes, and I know that like from you gotta make life decisions for real. Like, do I need to take a nap or go to class? Or, I know I got practice later on and I gotta study, like people don't understand. And then on top of that, your travel and March Madness and what you guys have to do and all of these things that are going on. Essentially, student comes second when it, as it relates to the basketball season and things like that. So, talk about kind of your transition when you went from high school to college and then realizing that, oh, shucks, like I ain't it's not high school. Like now I gotta wake myself up. I gotta go to class. I gotta, travel. I gotta make sure that my stuff is turned in. Like, talk about your journey when it comes to that.
So when I first went into UConn, coming out of high school, I was a 3.7 GPA student. When I
Nice.
left UConn, it was not that. And it was because in high school, I was getting by, like doing the bare minimum and getting A's. But then
Yeah.
when I tried to do the same thing or kind of even a little bit more, it was like I was getting like B minuses. Like it was not good and it was subpar. And I feel like I had to kind of teach myself to do a little bit more. Like I couldn't study the day before an exam.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do my homework in class as we're talking about the next thing. It was something that like I just couldn't get through. So I kind of had to learn that for myself, and luckily like a lot of colleges are good with that and give like the freshman grace because it is like a big difference between college and high school depending on what high school you went to. But I feel like once like after that semester it was like I understood like what was expected of me, and so I had to do just a little bit more. But I think in terms of like the travel, like you mentioned, that's probably the hardest thing, like just learning to plan weeks ahead, weeks and weeks ahead. Like once you get your schedule for the season, you automatically you send that right through to the professor so that they know what days you're not going to be in school. And even then, like sometimes you miss a week of school and you're missing days on days, and it's like when the classes are hour 2 hours long, it's like you're missing a whole week and you're lost, you're on all over the place, and then you have an exam on the day that you can make it back to class. So it's like you have to prepare really far ahead, and that was kind of something that I had to learn going into college, just because high school is like on a day-to-day basis. Like I forgot to do my homework because I had AAU practice last night. I'm just going to do it in the morning, or I'm going to do it right before I go to class. That's not cutting it. And they talk about participation, like you got to go to class. So it's like, it's hard to kind of coast through that when you're doing two things at once and you have to do it at a really high clip.
I ain't gonna sit here and lie to you, Mir. There were some times when I ain't go to class. I was just like, you know what? I need a nap, and I know I got practice. I'm gonna go ahead and can you take notes for me? Oh, all right, I got you. It was tough. It's definitely tough, and I understand that. And you can't coast because when that professor gives you 7 chapters to read, for in 2 days, and you like, what? Like I got 3 other classes, and everybody giving me chapters to read. It can be a lot. And so, I definitely just shout out to all of the student athletes out there, student athletes. I don't know if you know where the term student athlete came from. Do you know the history of the term student athlete?
No.
Wow. So this is something that I recently talked to my friend Brandon Copeland about as well, too. So the term student athlete was coined by the NCAA. And so this term was coined because there was a football player in the past, and his last name was Jennison. He was a football player, and so he got injured on the field. And at the time, his family was trying to receive compensation for his injury, of course. And so during that time, the NCAA thought, and they were like, hey, you know what? All of these players might want to try to receive compensation for injuries and things of that sort. So, hey, how can we they got with their lawyers, how can we alleviate having to pay out compensation for injuries and okay, here we go, amateurism. So now the term student athlete gets brought about because now you're an amateur, so you're not a worker. There's no union and there's no compensation. And so that's kind of the history behind the NCAA and the term student athlete. And so I think it's important for a lot of student athletes to understand with the history, definitely as it relates to the NCAA with that. When we talk about NIL deals now and opportunities, especially for women, I've seen more and more, of these deals just coming about, whether it's WNBA and Caitlin Clark, she's on commercials with Gatorade and Nike. Asia Wilson just got a deal. I see JuJu on commercials all the time. How important is having a positive brand and a social media presence for young female athletes out there?
I think it's super important. There are some pros and cons to it. The pros
Mhm.
obviously being you get exposed to just a lot of marketing agencies and people who want to invest in you. And
Mhm.
also the con just being that you're getting exposed, and if you don't do well in your season, especially like when people are betting their money
Mhm.
against you or for you and you underperform or it doesn't go against what they bet on, it's like it's your fault. Like I couldn't control, So it's
You
like
don't even get
sometimes
one
that's
more rebound. You needed
yeah.
one more rebound for my sports
Yeah.
gambling.
Yeah. So sometimes like the social media, like a lot of athletes don't go on it during the season or like even during NCAAs because it does get a little intense.
Well,
But I think it is super important that we do promote ourselves in that way, regardless of the risk, because I think that you get more opportunities the more that you present
absolutely.
yourself and show your personality.
Mhm.
Because people have to understand that like we're people too, and we have personalities, and we're just like a regular person. Like it's nothing different than us and a regular person who doesn't play a sport. And so I think it's best to showcase that on our social media platforms and like help people remember like that's who we are and the sport is what we play and not our personalities and identities don't lie in the sport that we play.
Nice, nice. And so with this podcast, we always like to kind of interject the financial aspect into things. And I know we've talked a little bit about NIL. Are there opportunities for, when you went to UConn, Virginia, and now University of Maryland, have you seen opportunities where student athletes are getting the financial education also that's necessary, especially now that NIL is a thing and revenue sharing is a thing? Are you seeing more and more students and athletes just start to think about like investments and entrepreneurship and business, just all of those types of things? What are you guys seeing? What's some of the locker room talk around that?
Yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of like things that correspond with the financial literacy of everything, just because at the end of the day, we're young adults, like we're in our teens, some are still in their teens, like we're getting a lot of money at once, and that can be dumbly spent or, saved, invested in a smart way. So I think like the financial literacy is super important. Like we have classes or we have like little meetings and sessions where like we play fun games and things like that to kind of imitate like our lives or
Mm.
anything like that. Like I went to one a couple months ago and we kind of simulated like my lifestyle out of college, so like where I wanted to live, what the rent, like the cost of living was in that state, if I wanted a dog, how many children I had, like things like that. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's super duper important in terms of like thinking down the road, because when you're in your 20s and your late teens, you're thinking like, oh, I have so much money right now, what can I spend it on, where can I place it, like what can I buy the newest what. And I think a lot of times, like because we're so young, we don't think that far ahead, and I feel like that could put us in like a greater risk than if we had no money at all. So
Yeah.
I feel like just understanding the value of the dollar is super important, and I think that the universities do a good job of supporting us in that spectrum, like in that way of life. And then just in general, like in terms of like NIL deals and things like that, like a lot of it sometimes has to go with like volunteer work. So we understand like the value of the dollar and not just getting a pot of money and saying, here, like do with it as you please. Like there's a lot of requirements that go with it. Like some universities have student athletes kind of volunteer and help out with like the homeless shelters or
Mm.
special needs kids and things like that. So I think that even just doing that stuff, essentially not for free, but still understanding that part of life and just volunteering and being a good person at the end of the day is also important, as well as the financial literacy outlets that they give us too.
Absolutely. I definitely agree always when it comes to giving back. That's one of the things that I'm a huge, huge component of is making sure that you reach back and you're You're, just blessing others. It's whatever gifts that you may have, being able to just bless others with those gifts, whether it's monetary, whether it's your time, volunteerism, or your skill set, just being able to help others. This, one of the reasons, one of the purposes why I feel I'm here is to help others. And just with women's basketball, we saw that Caitlin Clark was able to kind of elevate the WNBA and elevate college basketball to another level, and now we're seeing JuJu Watkins and her evolution and how she's able to, she's even coming behind Caitlin and breaking records and things like that, and you guys played her earlier this year. I'm not necessarily sure how she did. Well, how was that going against, and I know you've gone against Caitlin, you've gone against, you've played with Paige Beckers and gone against JuJu. What are some of the strengths that you see from some of these top players, especially a JuJu Watkins?
I feel like in terms of like offensively, most of them, a lot of them don't really get rattled. Like they play at their own pace, they beat to their own drum, things don't go their way, they go on to the next play super quickly. And I feel like because there's a lot of emotion in the game of basketball and it's quick plays back and forth in a game of runs and a game of mistakes, I feel like it's super important that you have those athletes who are super stoic like JuJu or can make the next play like Paige or just a highlight clip like Caitlin Clark. I feel like that's really important. But my answer to that would just be that they're super stoic and, they can make the next play easily and they're not rattled easily by the drama of the game and they, move at their own pace. As a good defender, you can't really speed them up. So I think that that's really important. And I also think that because they're so competitive and they have so much respect for the game, they respect people who play them really hard or who defend them at a high clip because it makes them better as well.
Absolutely. I feel like that, when it comes to professional athletes, one, and just, top athletes in general, you want to go against the best competition because generally speaking, that's what's going to show where you are. And then you can say, hey, I'm going against, whether it's Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, I went against them and I was able to accomplish this because, or even still, like you could say, hey, I'm better than this person because this is the person that everybody's saying is the best. And I was able to put up these numbers or accomplish this. So it's always amazing to hear just top athletes, have the respect, the reverence, and then also just want to compete against each other is always amazing. I feel like women, y'all compete super hard against each other. Y'all are feisty on the court. I swear, like, for those of you that haven't gone to a college women's basketball game or a WNBA game, I would suggest you go check it out because they nasty out there. I'm talking, hit a three, cross you over, break your ankles, all of that, and some of them might dunk on you, So Mir, it's definitely been a pleasure talking to you. Before we kind of end things, I want to give you an opportunity to just share, first of all, your social media platforms that people can check you out, and then talk about your future goals that you have, and then some advice for any female athletes out there as they look to kind of elevate their game.
So my name on all social media platforms is Mir McLean, and then on Instagram it's just Mir with the gear. And then in terms of advice that I give to younger athletes or just girls in general would be to just be yourself and be the person that you would want people to see, but when no one's watching. So character is who you are when no one's watching. So just be a good person off the court. The best compliments that I've gotten is that I'm nothing like who I am on the court, off the court. And I love that compliment because there's two different personalities. Between those four lines, I'm completely different. So I think just being a good person off the
That means
court.
she nasty, y'all. She just nasty. She being everybody up.
Just being a good person off the court is super important to me. And that leads to like my goals and things like that of just wanting to be a good person to other people who are less fortunate. So my major right now in grad school is international relations, and I want to be able to help refugees assimilate to America or, just have a better life in America because, times are hard in different countries right now. So just being that kind of bridge between the gap of foreigners and coming to America and being better civilians than they were in their countries that they had to leave.
Wow. Have you gotten a chance to go overseas and kind of do some missionary work and things like that already?
So my major in undergrad and even when I was like in high school, I took Arabic and that was like the language that I spoke. And so I went to Morocco last summer and I did like an intensive program of like learning and understanding. So I met like a lot of different people and I was there for about a month. So just being there and actually seeing it firsthand and not just learning about it was super fun, like very educational, and it kind of just confirmed what I wanted to do in life. So yeah, that was something that was a special experience for me.
Nice. Well, Mir, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time out. I definitely wishing the Maryland Terpins women's basketball team much success. You guys are, fourth in the Big Ten currently right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm hoping that you guys get the third and the second and, and continue to rise for sure. So good luck with the rest of the season. I appreciate your time and always my success.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.